wondering if it was going to take off, and said he'd seen a few of them. It reminded me of this picture that's hanging on the wall in the little rock house back here of my dad and his twin brother in the car with my grandmother and my granddad. And that car was bought as the first car that ever came to the city of Carlsbad or to Eddy County. It was bought in 1913. New Mexico was 1 year old, and that was a year after he bought it, because he bought it when those boys were born, and they were born out here at La Herda, and then he tried to take them back to the ranch. But he had Uncle Malcolm and Uncle Fred with him, so there were 4 kids, and my grandmother and himself. And that car didn't have enough power to make those hills go into Chico Ranch down there below the Guadalupe Peak. And so grandmother would get out and they'd unload the kids, all 4 of them, and the bedding and the groceries, and then he'd run up to him. She'd walk up about halfway up that mountain and then get a big rock, and he'd run that car up the hill, and she'd scotch the wheels when it just quit going, and then he'd rev it up again, and she'd wait for him, and he'd come up there, and she'd scotch the wheels again. They'd get to the top, and then they had to walk back down and pick up all 4 of those kids and carry them back up and put them all in the car, and then they'd start down the other side. And they made about 3 of those runs, and she said, Rufus, said, if anybody comes by with a mule and a wagon, said, trade them straight across for this family car. Fed up with that. But they made it. But even with that car, they had to drive 2 days to get back here to Carlsbad, because it was 75 miles of bad road. And we don't understand those hardships and what that meant. And grandmother always talked about the fanciest thing in her kitchen was the running water. We consider that as to be a necessity. To her it was a luxury. But those people is what made this country what it is today, so that we can be here and pretend like we did it all. And it makes me feel good to have that kind of heritage and to have grown up under that. Now, we lived in Jal. They starved out for water up there in those mountains back in the 30s, and they moved to Jal in 32 because they didn't have any water up there. Nickel Creek dried up, and all of that Culberson County over there, the water all dried up. So they left, and they drove those cows all the way to Jal to find them water, and they had some water wells over there at Jal that somebody dug, and they were holding the tanks. They put dirt tanks up there and then filled them up with windmills. And boy, Granddad thought that was the greatest thing he'd ever seen. So they moved those cattle to Jal and started ranching there. And then Uncle Malcolm and Uncle Fred both went to the service, learned how to fly airplanes, and then came back and taught my dad how to fly an airplane. So the Madera family always had airplanes, and we thought that was pretty nifty. I got to fly to school in 1948, 1949, 1950. My sister and I flew to school in Jal, New Mexico, because it took an hour for Mother to drive in there and unload us, and then she'd have to come back an hour to the ranch, and then an hour back to town that afternoon to pick us up, an hour back home, 4 hours a day. She said, I'm not doing that. But that was before we had even heard about homeschooling. Now, Dad and Ruford and Malcolm and Fred and Aunt Mildred were all homeschooled at Chico because it was 75 miles to town. But my dad went to Hardin Simmons every year, and he would hire a school teacher that just graduated, that was hunting a job, and he'd bring her to the ranch and make her sign a contract, stay 9 months. And so, even as tough as those boys were, they couldn't run her off because she had a contract. Granddad had her sign a contract. So she'd teach those kids, and she taught them, and Uncle Fred and Uncle Malcolm finally graduated when they were about 17 years old. And Granddad put them on a train here in Carlsbad and sent them to Albuquerque, to the University of New Mexico. And he went back to the ranch. About 4 days later, sheriff showed up out there at the ranch and said, Mr. Madera, said, your boys are in trouble. Said, they're in jail in Albuquerque. Said, you're going to have to go do something about that. So he loaded up in his car and went to Albuquerque. He came to Carlsbad and got on the train and went to Albuquerque. And when he got up there, he found out that when Fred and Malcolm had unloaded in Albuquerque off of the train, the senior class had met them and said, you guys are freshmen. Said, and we've got these brooms and we're going to initiate you. And the cop said, those Madera boys fed those brooms to those seniors. And said, when we got them untangled, said we had to put the Madera boys in jail because the rest of the college was fixing to clean house with them. So we don't have them in here because we're mad at them. We've got them in here to save their lives. Well, when Granddad left Albuquerque, he came back to Chico Ranch up here, and he told Grandmother, he said, pack your stuff. Said, we're going to have to take these other 3 kids to town and put them in public school so that they'll know how to stand in line and how to be initiated and how to say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, and all of that. So my dad and his twin brother and Aunt Mildred then went to high school in Carlsbad. Their last 3 years of school was in Carlsbad. And that was how we became part of Eddy County. Granddad was a county commissioner for Culberson County and down at Van Horn back in the early 20s and 30s. And then they started coming to Carlsbad because it was so much better. And my brother-in-law Dick McCall's here with my sister Millie and my cousin Sayana, and we were talking about the old Crawford Hotel. And there's some of you people here that can remember the old Crawford Hotel. And my granddad had a chair there that when he was in town, nobody else sat in that chair. My granddad sat in that chair. And I can remember that well. And I can remember riding in the elevator. That's the only elevator I ever saw in my whole life. But there was a guy there that worked the elevator for you. You just got in there and stood still, and he'd take you for whatever floor you wanted to go to. And I thought that was the neatest thing in the world. So at my ripe old age, or the ripe young age that I am now, I'm just tickled to death to be a part of this community, be able to do the cattle drive and to celebrate this centennial celebration, and hope that we can have a lot more fun as we go down the road. And as many of you are aware, Monte Carlo and I have started a new business. It's called Cowboy Up Energy Drinks. You can buy them right here in Carlsbad at all the Allsup stores. And we're going to carry that on down the road. We're trying to expand it. And so if you want to help us out, just go buy one and drink it. Hope you like it. Have fun with it. And if there's anything else we can do to help you guys, we'll be glad to. We want to be friends and be neighbors. And here, if all my family stand up over here, y'all stand up and wave at everybody. This is just part of them. This is all the ones I could gather up to follow me to town this morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anything else? Oh, I did that. Well, no, I'm through.
Yeah, you're not quite through yet.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to say a few words. I hope everybody's enjoying our 2012 Heritage Day celebration. We had the wonderful photos by one of Carlsbad's treasures, Jed Howard. Always such a great job. For outstanding musical entertainment and the Chautauqua program. And of course the food. Len Ballard and his group always do a great job. I always want to thank the Heritage Day's outstanding committee, starting with Chairman Jim Harrison. Where you at, Jim?
Just eating.
Eating. Julie Williams, Bob Scholl, Harvey Hicks, Jerry Stanley, Mickey Miller, Jed Howard, Patsy Jackson Christopher, and Randy Christopher, Alma Fitzgerald, Laverne Thomas, Mario Salinas, and Randy Milligan. Most of these people have been together and putting this on since day one. Such a great group. Heritage Days has always been one of my favorite events in Carlsbad. We come out here to celebrate our pioneer history and the men and women who brought us to where we are today. We have the advantage of living in a part of the country with an incredibly rich, diverse history, and I love learning more about it every year. Today is a special day because we're honoring a man who doesn't just come from one of Southeast New Mexico's leading pioneer families. He's also become a national figurehead for cowboy culture. Burt Madera is in many ways the cowboy behind Cowboy Up Energy Drink, a product now distributed in hundreds of locations. And you took away a little of my thunder there. Burt and his wife, Monty Carroll, Madera are partners with Ryan Leon. Together they run the Zia Beverage Company. For Burt, it's another way to spread the word about cowboy culture. Burt and Monty Carroll were the force of the New Mexico Centennial Cattle Drive that was so successful. That's the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that the Madera family has displayed since coming to this area back in the early 1900s. The Maderas have always been ranchers, cowboys, and oilmen, but they've also been leaders and businessmen. A member of the Madera family was the captain of Carlsbad's first high school football team. The Maderas also, I understand, owned Carlsbad's first car and are responsible for the existence of Highway 128. Burt and Monty Carroll have continued in this tradition. The Maderas are pioneers in conservation on their Pitchfork Ranch, which has the oldest holistic grazing program in the United States. Burt has also previously served as musician Michael Martin Murphy's general manager. Burt is the real deal, and it's an honor to be here today to speak about him and the Madera family and all they've done for Carlsbad and southeastern New Mexico. I now have a proclamation, and I'd like my granddaughter, Delaney, to come up and read the proclamation.
Whereas Carlsbad is a city rich in historical background and has a heritage that connects our country's earliest days as a raw frontier to the vigorous beat of the present, and whereas Carlsbad celebrates Heritage Days on September 29, 2012 at Eddie Bissell House, and whereas we are deeply indebted to the Heritage Park Committee, the Carlsbad Historical Society and Museum, Carlsbad Beautification Committee, Carlsbad Community Foundation for preserving the memories of the past and making them a part of the living present for all of us. Now, therefore, I, Dale Janway, Mayor of the City of Carlsbad, New Mexico, do hereby proclaim September 29, 2012 as Heritage Days celebration in Carlsbad and urge all citizens to join me in honoring Burt Madera and family to enjoy the many activities during this special and memorial occasion. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the corporate seal of the City of Carlsbad, New Mexico, this 29th day of September 2012.
Good job, Gary. And I'm going to ask Jim Harrison, the chairman of the committee, to come up, please. Where you at, Jim?
He's still eating.
Jim has an award he'd like to give you.
I'll try to read this quickly. Eddy County Heritage Award presented to the Madera family in grateful appreciation to the family for many contributions to our area for generations and for your leadership and dedication to making the New Mexico Centennial Cattle Drive a great success. Presented this day, Saturday, September 29th at Heritage Park. Dale Janway, Mayor.
I didn't mention Jim Harrison, chairman.
so much.
You sure you don't have anything else to say?
No, I don't. I'm clear.
Is this it?
This is it.
I want to thank the Madera family for being here. Boy, this was an enlightening wake-up for me, because I came out here, I was talking about horses in the first car. I came out by a Santa Fe passenger train. Cool. Got off the train. I was used to cool weather. I got off the temperature was 106 degrees, and I thought, Bert, I've stepped into you-know-where. So thank you for being here. We're proud of all of you. And we're proud of all the people who came here today, especially you ladies. You have to put up with us. It's got to be a strain. And I really want to congratulate all the ladies who are here today. And for you guys, if you don't like it, you can see me walking home pretty soon. On behalf of Mayor Janway, Jim Harrison, and all of our committee, and that wonderful group, the former publisher of the Current Argus, Larry Henderson, thank you for being here today. Godspeed.